Alright, so today I want to introduce you to the Ivory ball python. The Ivory is actually a super Yellowbelly, and the Yellowbelly, I'd say it looks really close to a normal, classic, wild type ball python. It's a really subtle morph, but if you actually work it in with other combos, sometimes you can get some really dramatic effects with the Yellowbelly. And if you actually take two Yellowbellies, breed them together, 25% of the time you get an Ivory, which is an all-white snake. And a lot of people consider all-white snakes, especially the Ivory, to kind of be dead-end projects where you mix other genes into the mix and it completely masks them. Sometimes you don't even know they're there, but there are a few genes that you can mix with the Ivory to make some really awesome combinations. And today I want to jump over to the internet and I want to show you the limitations and the potential of the Ivory ball python. Alright, so I want to jump over here on Morphmarket.com and I want to start with just the single gene Yellowbelly. This is what a Yellowbelly looks like. It looks almost like a normal ball python, and if you actually take two of these and breed them together, this is what you get. You get an Ivory, really beautiful snake. And the Ivory is kind of interesting. I think there's different lines of Yellowbelly if you actually cross two of them together. Sometimes you get a really bright white snake, and sometimes you kind of get a dirty snake. I got another one over here. Take a look at this one. This is the same thing. It's an Ivory, and this one is definitely not stark white. I'd say the stark white Ivories are kind of rare. Usually they have a little bit of color in them. Sometimes they have a little bit of purple, maybe a little line of yellow on the top in rare instances, and usually they have kind of like a dirty kind of a color. Like you almost want to wash them off. They have this kind of a brownish gray kind of a light color all over the snake, and usually they kind of have a dirty head too, but it's a really powerful breeder. I'd say most people, when they're buying an Ivory, they're thinking about the potential when they actually breed that to something else, because some of the Ivory combinations, especially in the highways and the freeways and the super stripes, let me tell you, you can get some really amazing combos if you're starting with an Ivory. So I kind of wanted to show you some of the limitations of the Ivory, working other genes into it. And I'm going to start with a couple paradoxes, which is kind of a unique, kind of an example of kind of what's going on with the Ivory. I'd say when it comes to paradoxes, it's kind of a weird genetic anomaly that you really can't predict, and a lot of times you really can't reproduce it either. And it's kind of interesting. Some people pay a lot more money for some of these paradoxes and thinking they're actually going to breed them and reproduce them, and I'd say in most cases you actually can't do that. So essentially what a paradox is, it's kind of unexpected from what you would normally see in an Ivory. And in this one you can see this is a paradox Ivory het clown, and you have a little bit of the normal coloration coming in on the Ivory. And I'd say usually with the Ivories and the albinos and some of the pieds, you can actually see quite a bit of paradoxing in those three genes. It seems to be more specific to certain genes. I actually pulled up another one here, and let's take a look at this one. This is actually the Ivory paradox banana, and normally the Ivory would completely mask out the banana, and this one has a little bit of banana actually breaking through the Ivory. We call it a paradox, kind of a weird anomaly. So what I want to do is I want to start with some of these base genes. I want to start with pastel and mix it into some of these Ivories, and you can actually see the different genes mixed in and see how it actually interacts with the Ivory. The pastel is kind of interesting. It's actually one of your most common genes in ball pythons, and it really brings out a lot of the yellow in the snakes, and a lot of times it reduces the pattern. Here's what happens when you mix pastel in with Ivory. Take a look at this. This is actually a pastel Ivory, and in this specific example you can't see the pastel in there at all, and this is a really super bright white example of an Ivory. You can tell it completely masks the pastel. Here's another one. This is actually a spider. The spider is normally extremely visually dominant. You mix spider into other combinations and it really has a strong spider influence as far as the visual effect. Here's what happens when you mix spider in with Ivory. Take a look at this. You actually get another completely white snake, and you kind of see kind of a trend here. This is why they kind of say it's kind of a dead-end project, because you're mixing these really visually strong genes into Ivory and they they just kind of completely disappear in the white snake. And if you just kind of keep going, this is actually the pastel coral glow. And I'd say the coral glow is probably one of the most extreme examples of visual dominance. You mix it with something else and it really has an extreme visual dominance where you can definitely see the coral glow in most combos you mix it in with. And take a look at this. This is actually a coral glow pastel ivory, and it completely wipes it out. In this case, it's kind of interesting. You can actually see ivories with a little bit of yellow on the top. I'd say the coral glow is not really making that much of a difference, if anything at all, in this snake. And you can see a little couple splotches of yellow. That's a little bit of paradoxing actually breaking through. So really no effect with the coral glow in the ivory. So here's another one, the firefly. This is actually the pastel and the fire. Makes for really, it's probably one of the most visually stunning snakes that there is when you actually, you know, just two simple genes mixed together. This is what happens when you mix firefly in with the ivory. Take a look at this. You essentially get an ivory. It completely masks it. And you keep going on and on. Here is the pinstripe, another really visually dominant snake. You mix the pinstripe in with the ivory and you get basically an ivory. Can't even tell the pinstripes in there. Here's another one, the Mojave, and you probably guessed it. You mix the Mojave in with the ivory and you get what looks like another ivory. So I'd say pretty much most of your genes, when you start mixing it in with ivory, you can definitely see where a lot of people would think, hey, this is really a dead-end project. There's really nothing I can do with ivory besides breed it to something else and use it as a really powerful breeder. But there are two examples of genes that I found that make ivory combinations really impressive, and the first one is Leopard. And first I wanted to show you what a leopard looks like. Leopard is pretty much the king of combos when it comes to co-dominant mutations, and the interesting thing about Leopard is it's not really that visually dominant. I would have thought something like the coral glow or the spider would actually break through the ivory more than the leopard. But here's what happens when you mix Leopard in with the ivory. Take a look at this snake. This is probably one of the most amazing ivories I have ever seen, and it only happens when you actually mix in the leopard. And you can see a lot of these purples and yellows, and it gives a really faint, kind of a really soft color to the snake. It looks really awesome. You can definitely see the dark head from the super Yellowbelly. It's pretty characteristic with the dark head. And you can actually add more things on top of this. Take a look at this one. This is actually the leopard mixed with the fire. So leopard is the key to making some of these combos. Essentially what you're doing is you're taking the leopard to bring out the color, and then you're mixing in other genes on top of the leopard to make some impressive combos with the ivory. So here's what happens when you take the leopard and the fire, you mix it in with the ivory. Take a look at this one. This is really impressive. And the more I keep digging in with the leopard and other genes on top of it, you can make some really impressive combos with the purples and the yellows, and almost like an electric kind of a pattern coming up through the snake. Pretty awesome. So here's another one. This is actually the butter leopard. So the leopard is actually works with the butter in some cases to give you a really strong stripe right down the top of the snake. So here's what happens if you take the butter and the leopard and you mix it with the ivory. Take a look at this one. This is really wild. It almost completely takes away all the dark color on the head and gives it this really bright yellow stripe right down the top of the snake, outlined in purple. And if you look kind of close, it almost has this purplish hue, a little bit of kind of an electric pattern on the side. That is a pretty awesome snake. So here's another one. This is actually the pied with the leopard. And I'd say the leopard's kind of difficult when you mix it in with pied, because usually with pied, it adds these splotches of white, but it also jumbles up the pattern when you're actually mixing pied with just about anything else. So if you're trying to do like some pattern mutations in with pieds, it's almost impossible to tell if you actually have leopard and pied unless you mix it with ivory. So take a look at this. This is the leopard pied ivory. Take a look at this one. This is really interesting because essentially what it's doing is you're getting the color coming in from the leopard, and then the pied's actually breaking it up with the white splotches. So you can definitely see the influence of both, but leopard is definitely the key in all of these combos. So here's another one I pulled up. This is actually just a pastel leopard, and I thought this one was kind of unique, where it's actually breaking up the pattern entirely into this really electric pattern. Really amazing. It'd be amazing to see something in here to kind of give a little more contrast to the snake, but I really haven't seen a lot of leopard combos, and I was just kind of cherry picking the best snakes that I can find over on Morphmarket. So here's another one that I thought was really awesome. This is a leopard with the pastel and the orange dream mixed in with the ivory. Really stunning snake, really beautiful. I really love how it really turned kind of the color right along the yellow line into a blue. It almost gives the whole snake a hue that is blue. Really awesome. And look at the head stamp on this. Some of these are really amazing ivories. I had no idea that you could actually do this with ivory mixing in with leopard until I started really digging in deep into what the possibility was with the ivory. And let me tell you, leopard is the key. So here's another one. This is the Super Orange Dream Enchi Leopard Ivory. So there's a lot of genes at play here. So essentially the ivory is the Super Yellowbelly. The leopard's bringing out the color. The Orange Dream it's actually a Super Orange Dream. So it's bringing out a lot of the orangish yellow color, giving you the stripe right down the top. And another thing I found in addition to leopard, I'd say the leopard's probably #1 as far as the ivory combos, but Enchi I'd say is the runner-up when you're actually going for some of these ivory combos. I actually pulled up this last one here. I just wanted to show you this real quick. This one doesn't have the leopard, but it has pastel and Enchi in here. I didn't see a whole lot of Enchi combos, but Enchi, in my opinion, it definitely has a lot of potential when you're mixing in and with ivory. You can definitely see this bright yellow line right down the top, kind of the crazy head. You can almost see a little bit of color coming in the sides. I see Enchi's a runner-up, but leopard is definitely the king when it comes to working with ivory. All right, so it is time for the question of the day. And Frederick Russell asks, what is your dream project in ball pythons? And that is a very good question. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about getting into the Confusion project this upcoming year. They pretty much have just barely come down within my price range. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to sell enough hatchlings to really invest in some high-end projects. I'm really focused on one project per year. This year I actually invested in my Banana Enchi Clown male to really up my game in the clown project. This coming year, I'm thinking about the Confusion, and probably the year after that, I'm thinking about investing in the Freeway project with the Asphalt and the Yellowbelly. Some really awesome. I'm actually thinking about maybe getting a couple Freeways and then breeding together, and I'll get the Super Asphalt, the Freeways, and the Ivories, the Super Yellowbellies, which would be a really awesome project. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.